Hi there, Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video, and welcome to episode 254 of Ask Boss Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday where I answer your questions. So if you do have a question for next week's episode and you want to be featured in the video, be sure to leave that question in the comments section of this video. This episode of Ask Boss Bounty is 254, so we're going to be quickly talking about VC54, which is the ARC Trooper Commando. This figure here, or not exactly, this is the actual reissue that came out on those Gendy Clone Wars cards, which are pretty cool. Really nice figure, that one. It's basically Captain Fordo on that Clone Commander card. I'll try and bring up an image of it. I don't have my carded sample available at hand, which is why I've got that figure there for you to take a look at. But this was really a popular card back in TVC 1.0 and still commands a bit of a hefty price tag on the secondary market. If you want to check out those prices, there is a link in the description below that you can do so to see what they're going for these days. Apart from that, before we get on to this week's questions, I just want to talk about very quickly the live stream that I hosted last night. It was the annual live stream that I do every year where we complete the bracket. My friend Chris, Nick from Only One Kenobi, and John from the SWTVC. We had a lot of fun completing the bracket, as we always do. It went on for 3 hours, 15 minutes almost. Long live stream, but I think most people that were watching enjoyed it. I hope you did anyway. If you didn't watch it, then it is on the channel if you wanted to catch up with some of that video. But thanks everybody for attending. It's always good fun, that one. With all that being said, if you haven't enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below, subscribe if you are new, and let's get on to the first question. Andy Jurassic says, with the Andor dropping this past week, which characters from the trailer would be great to add to the vintage collection? Well, buddy, I think everybody knows that Andor is one of my favourite sort of things from the Disney era. I absolutely love it, and I cannot wait for season 2, and the trailer looked absolutely fantastic. There's so many amazing things in that trailer that I would like to be in the vintage collection, but just to pick out a few, I mean, obviously there's Saw Gerrera. We need him anyway from Rogue One, but there was also a part in that trailer where he looked very like he does in Rogue One. Obviously, season 2 of Andor stretches over sort of a multiple time period, which, you know, you're going to see different looks for certain characters, things like that. Luthen, of course, goes without saying, did very well in the video last night, the live stream when we completed the bracket. I'm not going to say how far he got, but he did pretty well. And then I like the look of things like the armored ISB officers. I think they look really cool. It's like ISB officers in sort of like half stormtrooper armor. I don't know, they just look really cool. And then you've got vehicles like the Partisan X-Wings, 2 tubes. Man, there's so much stuff that I would like from Andor, but there's a few for you. GA says, hey BB, question for next week. I like what Hasbro are now doing for alt card backs when they reissue a previous figure. However, shouldn't they assign alt VC numbers for these reissues? For example, this year's Dr. Evazan given VC57A. Likewise, Ponda Baba given VC70A. I appreciate that this isn't a first world problem, but it matters to some of us. What the hoth were they thinking when they put Hammerhead on an oversized card? Don't they get it? Thanks, BB. You're the man. So I'm not really going to get into the Hammerhead thing too much. Everybody sort of knows my views on that. Original 96 characters should not be on anything other than standard card backs, in my opinion, to keep that continuity for all of the others that we have, and really Hasbro should have known better with that fact. As for the alt cards and the numbering and things like that, I just want to read something that Steve Evans posted on his post when he was, you know, promoting the new releases, and he says, Ponda's VC number stays the same since there are no big changes to accessories or paint. This reissue gives collectors who don't have Ponda a chance to get him, while ensuring those who do and collect by VC number don't feel pressured to buy duplicates to keep up their VC streak. But we do like to offer alternate card backs on reissues for variety, knowing many enjoy collecting variants. Hopefully this approach helps you to collect your way. And that is absolutely fine. I can see what they're trying to do there. They're trying to sort of cater to everybody. And, you know, I personally, and this is just my opinion, the VC number doesn't really bother me that much. I don't look at the card backs and go, oh my God, I'm missing VC 69. It's more about the card image for me. And when they do reissue a figure, I do like it when they give us an alt image like Dr. Evazan. And in my opinion, they should maybe put an A on the end of the numbering just to make it different. I don't think that's going to annoy people necessarily that collect from a number point of view. You know, great, I've got every single one from number 1 to number 300 and whatever. For me, it's more about how they look on the front. And if they're going to reissue, what people that have already got those are more worried about is the fact that they maybe have paid an extortionate amount of money to get a Grievous, for example. Let's just say at the moment he's $180, £180, for example. Let's just say they reissue that one. We know that that affects the price of this one. So a new collector that's just come into the line buys this one for 180. 2 months later, Hasbro reissue General Grievous on the same card back. It looks identical. That's going to bring down the value that they've just paid, and they're going to be pretty annoyed. However, if they bring it out on an alternative card back, different image, then it retains the value a little bit more anyway of that original release. And I think that's where they've got to kind of get it right. And then that reissue should have some indicator on the back, an A or something, or an R for reissue, whatever it might be. I don't think there's many people that actually worry about the numbers so much as more of what it looks like on the front. That's just my opinion anyway. Let me know in the comment section below if I'm completely wrong about that. But that is Steve Evans's explanation about, you know, how they're thinking about it anyway. Fionn O'Connor says, hi Boss Bounty, I'm a huge fan of your channel for years. I am 12 years old. Question for next week, do you think they will ever re-release or mold a new General Grievous figure? I have the old Vintage Collection one and it is a great figure, but I think it's about time for another General Grievous figure. Keep up the good work. Well, first of all, buddy, thanks for following the channel for however many years. I really appreciate that. In terms of General Grievous, you know, I've got him there for this video for you. I feel it's about time that we probably had a new version of General Grievous. I could see them potentially reissuing that one. I really could, but I think it could really do with an update, in my opinion. And I think it would be a shame if they were to treat what's a pretty main character with just a reissue. I think potentially they need to work on him from the ground up. That's just my opinion on it. And, you know, that dispels all of the issues about reissues and card backs and numbering. Just make a new one. Dean Lee 1138 says, hi Boss, question for next week. What is your favorite diorama in your display cabinet and what would you like to add to your dioramas in the future? Cheers. Okay, so in answer to your question, Dean, I do know that you and I use the same cabinets because you are the person that recommended these cabinets to me, and I thank you for that because they are very handy indeed. And I do know that you have done some pretty awesome stuff with yours as well. You use like sort of printed out backgrounds and other diorama pieces to, you know, really sort of expand upon what Hasbro have given us. I haven't really got that far with it, but I still like what I've sort of achieved at this moment in time in terms of like a pretty simple display diorama using all of the figures and vehicles and play sets and things like that that Hasbro have given us. I do like the Andor one, but I have to say that still I can't look past the Jabba's Palace in terms of what is my favorite, just because of, you know, what Hasbro have given us really in terms of the palace itself. It really does set the scene. It allows for plenty of figures, and then obviously you've got the adventure set there to go next to it. But the actual palace itself, with the lights coming through, with the shadows and everything, I just think they've achieved something really, really nice there. And, you know, we've got plenty of characters to go in there. There is still more to do, of course, but, you know, this is definitely my favorite thing that I have in my collection in terms of like a diorama piece. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. And in terms of what I would like to add to my dioramas, I'm running out of space a little bit, buddy, but you know, I think the one thing that I'm really looking forward to is the cantina, and I feel that I can build quite a lot around that cantina, especially with that play set for the Streets of Tatooine as well. I've got so many figures that just sort of stand there all huddled together, and it would be nice, like I've done with the Jabba's Palace, to be able to spread them out a little bit and actually have some kind of scenery to place them in. And yeah, that's the thing that I'm looking forward to the most. After that, I haven't really got too much space really, but potentially maybe like a Hoth diorama, like an Echo base or something would be pretty cool. Again, I've got quite a few figures that could go into something like that, or maybe like the inside of the Yavin 4 or something like that. But yeah, there's a couple of things that I think would be pretty cool. Grant's Galaxy says, cheers to you, keeping up this series, Tim. Never a dull moment and a fun watch every time. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. He says, question for next week, have you been to any illegal Ewok raves recently? I haven't, no. And to be honest, the last time that I went to one, the music that they used at that illegal rave ended up being getting a copyright on it. So I'm a little bit in fear of doing any more of those and using certain music in them. But now that video was quite fun to do, a little bit funny from my channel, really. You know, not the normal video that I would put out, but many people still haven't seen that video. It's on the channel, but yeah, thanks, buddy. Douglas Wallace says, if the Black Series and Retro Collection did not exist, how many more newly sculpted TVC figures do you think Hasbro would make per year? Man, this is a really interesting question, isn't it? And I could probably talk about this for a long time. You could probably have a whole live stream about this, discussing this. But I do feel that there is still a cap and a limit of what they can do, right? Because at the end of the day, the consumers can only consume so much per year. We all haven't got endless piles of money to be spending on this hobby. Not everybody buys everything anyway. And I think if you want an indication of what it would be like if those two lines didn't exist, then maybe, you know, go back to say 2009, 2010 and work out how many actual new sculpts we were getting in the line there versus repaints, reissues. And, you know, TVC isn't the only line that suffers from repaints, reissues. You only have to look at the most recent Black Series reveals with those Revenge of the Sith figures in those, you know, Revenge of the Sith packaging. They're straight repacks. They've already got those figures. They're just getting them in some fancy packaging that's supposed to be nostalgic, and maybe it is. Is it nostalgic to the 6-inch collectors? I don't know. You know, those used to be 3.75-inch packaging. So, as I've said before, a lot of 6-inch collectors used to be 3.75-inch collectors anyway. So, but yeah, I would suggest that there is still a cap. Obviously, if those two lines didn't exist, TVC would get more money, but I'm not too sure how much it would get, because a company still needs to do like repaints, reissues, retools and things like that. It's just not commercially viable to have a newly tooled figure for every single figure and never use that tooling ever again. But certainly we would get a few more for sure. Meter86 says, hey BB, another happy end to my Sunday in regards to the Luke Garage. UK pronunciation all the way. It was also a key scene in Attack of the Clones between Anakin and Padme, so maybe. That's from last week's question. Question for next week, is there a figure or figures that you're reaching for most often to manipulate or pose when rewatching Star Wars content? I tend to get a lot of use out of my Mando figures when I'm on Disney Plus. Have a great week, dude, and looking forward to the next week's live stream. It'll be my first March Madness. So I've got to say, at the moment, it's the Imperial Stormtrooper Hoth Battle gear. I mean, that is a phenomenal figure. If you haven't checked out my review, it is on the channel, and that figure is just super posable. It's super cool looking, and it's something that at the moment I can't sort of, you know, put down. It's just a joy to sort of play around with, basically. So I'm going to pick that one at this moment in time, but there's loads of figures, like the Kanan figure, for example, was one that I was messing around with for quite a long time, getting them into sort of different poses and stuff. So we're lucky in the fact that articulation on new figures, at least, you know, is really sort of getting to a very high standard. C3PO Concept says, what's up, sir? Hasbro just revealed the Deluxe Super Commando. How would you feel about a Troop Builder 4-pack that included 3 commandos with rifle and pistol and 1 commando with the red accent marks? If one bought 2 builder sets and 2 deluxes, you'd have 2 times Red Fire Team leaders, 6 times squad members, and 2 times Riot Troopers. I mean, I'd be down for that 100%. And to be honest, I feel that we will get a 4-pack of those at some point in the future. I can't see them wasting that sculpt. And as I said in my sort of reveals video, that deluxe figure doesn't really lend itself to army building, which is what they want you to do with that figure. At $24.99, nobody is going to be seriously army building that figure. So they really do need to get a 4-pack, maybe in the way that you've suggested there. And then, you know, you buy a couple of those and that gives you that squad that you need. Some with the riot shields, squad leaders, things like that. It's a good idea, and I'm sure it's probably on their sort of radar to do, because as I said, $24.99 for an army builder, it's just not going to happen. Collect says, great episode as always, BB. First off, great evolution set ideas I'd love to see. Evolutions of Boba Fett, Attack of the Clones Boba, Empire Strikes Back Boba, and Mando Season 2 Boba. Evolutions of Han Solo opening speeder chase with Han Hoth, and then the Force Awakens Han at Maz's castle. Evolution of Obi-Wan, Phantom Menace, Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, I'm down for all of those, buddy. Question for next week. With this year's theme being Tatooine and the Cantina, I'm excited, though I can't get enough of new aliens and droids. I personally love to see some human characters released at some point. I've entered them in my list over the years, but the likelihood of it ever happening is slim to none. Are there any you'd like to see made? My tops are Gareth Lafoe, Jurka Miggs, Deb Nolly, Arden Krell, Fozek, one that I'm not going to try and pronounce, and of course Cammy and Fixer. So I already have Cammy and Fixer, and to be honest, in my opinion, they're good enough for my collection. I don't really need those sort of redone. I don't think they're big enough characters, of course, are deleted scene characters. But ones that I would like to see that I class as human characters, you've got Bossk, General Medine. I don't think he's necessarily a main character, certainly not. So, I'd count him as, okay, he's got a speaking part, but he's still pretty background. Simalu is another one. He actually did quite well in the bracket on the live stream, as did Fozek as well. I think he got into some of the later rounds as well. Fozek, Return of the Jedi, to go with my, Jabba's Palace. He would be a good one to have in there as well. So there's a few human characters there for you, buddy. All right, a fairly long question from Phil Siders here. He says, hey, BB, I just watched your review of the Snowtrooper. Can't wait to get the ones I've pre-ordered. But it got me to thinking, my question is about future HasLabs. Hasbro stated from the very beginning that HasLabs are for dream projects. So do they always have to be ships or playsets? What I personally would love to see them do is a Finish the 96 HasLab. There are a few reasons why I think this would work. First off, I think many people would order two, one for openers and one to keep carded. Many online retailers would jump on this as well to sell the figures individually. Second off, it would allow more slots to be opened for newer characters from newer shows a little quicker. Third, they could justify the cost of the figures such as FX7 and Manaman, which they would probably charge us a deluxe price for, but put on a normal size card and just hide the price increase under the total umbrella cost, and would be a great way to get General Medine. My worry is Hasbro will do away with the vintage collection or the world will end before we see the original 96 completed. What's your thoughts? Would you go for this? Come on, Hasbro, let's break the standard model of HasLabs you've created and think outside the box. Thanks for your time and keep up the great content. So the idea of figure dream packs we've talked about quite a few times on the channel, and it is something that I would definitely be for. I think there is quite a lot of sort of things to get over regarding which characters, would they all be from the same media, all that kind of thing. There's a lot of questions to be asked about how the characters for a dream figure HasLab would be selected. Everybody wants different things, so it would be quite difficult. In terms of the Finish the 96, is that for me a dream project? I mean, a lot of people of course want the 96 finished, of course they do, but I quite like collecting them as they come out. It's always great to get a new one like the Snowtrooper there. And I just think maybe the way that you've set it out there, I'm not too sure if it would work, to be honest. There's quite a few figures still for them to do for Finish the 96, too many for a dream HasLab. You mentioned there that retailers would be all over it. That would kind of ruin the exclusivity of the HasLab. Yes, they could bring them out on different cards. Of course they could. But I just think, I don't know. I don't think those figures are niche enough to warrant a dream HasLab pack. Some of those characters are very normal characters that I'd expect, anyway. Warwick, for example, from Return of the Jedi, the Ewok. Just get him out in the line, Hasbro. Repaint the Lumat figure if you have to. Just get the Ewok out. I wouldn't really want that Warwick to be, part of a HasLab. They should just be getting that figure out anyway, if you kind of get my understanding. So dream figure HasLabs, yes, I'm for them, but there's quite a lot of sort of questions and obstacles to get around in terms of, what figures would actually be in that pack. And I think it'd have to be maybe 6 to 8 figures and no more than that. And there's a lot more than 8 figures still to be done from the original 96. I can understand your question though, because I know people do want them to finish the 96. But as Steve Evans said, if you give everybody what they want in one go, then they've got nothing left to buy. And yeah, we kind of need to think about that comment, right? Channel member Shannon Patrat says, greetings, Bossk. As always, it's Sunday treat to catch a new episode. Question for next week. I understand the ongoing debate about reissues versus new tooling. The subject came up again on the SWTVC March Madness livestream, specifically regarding Aura Singh and Dr. Evazan. While I certainly understand the desire for newly tooled figures, I'm much more on the side of saving that tooling budget for new characters' figures we haven't yet received in the line. Aside from needing definitive versions of main characters, I don't mind reissues of past background characters, especially those that are particularly expensive on the secondary market, Gamorrean Guards, Ugnaughts, etc. You've probably answered this before, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. Yeah, I mean, again, this is another question that we could potentially do a whole sort of conversation piece around, a whole live stream around. And it is one of those sort of emotive subjects where, you know, there's one side of people that are just like, no, every figure from now on has to have full articulations. Swivel hips, for example, do not have any place in the vintage collection, which is supposed to be, you know, a prestigious line and all that kind of thing. And I completely understand that side of the argument. And then there's other people that are like, well, to be honest, you know, Dr. Evazan, to get him out again, it's going to help sort of improve the budget with sales of that figure. And does he really need, you know, Jedi level articulation? You know, so where I'm at with this is that I'm kind of in the middle of those two arguments. I can completely see both sides. But for me, if we're looking at Ponda Baba specifically, that figure really needed a new head over anything else. So I realize that he has swivel hips and, you know, some people out there want him completely redone from the ground up. But when we have so many characters that need doing, and we're all screaming for the Bad Batch to be made and this and that, you know, you've got to ask some people, you know, would you rather have Ponda Baba with all new hips and head, but that means you don't get crosshair, for example? And I think I know what the answer would be. So when it comes to updates and reissues, I feel that accuracy is key. And with Ponda Baba, for me, he needed the larger head to be more accurate, and then he would just look just fine standing at the bar of my cantina. Instead, they just straight reissued him with some upgraded paint details or whatever. But as I said in my reveals video, you know, the head was the important thing, the legs not so much. But I do realize that there are people out there that think, you know, no reissue should ever be done from a figure that's X amount of time old. But this means new collectors just aren't ever going to get those figures, because there's no room in the line to bring out a brand newly fully tooled Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba because we're getting the cantina, because then you're not going to get other stuff. And that's just the fact of the matter, really. Ryan Buck says, question, what do you think of a Falcon area playset like the booth and the Jajaric table? Maybe Han's computer he sits at with it, or a companion piece. You could do OT and ST scenes. I don't like to take the lid off of my BMF and would love to have Luke fight the remote on a shelf. And I can completely understand what you mean there. You know, our sort of vehicles often double as play sets, don't they, in the vintage collection? And I think what you've described there sort of does lend itself more to the Black Series, where they, you know, just physically cannot get a big Millennium Falcon. It's absolutely impossible. So, you know, so a better solution for them would be to have, you know, just the cockpit, for example, or just the seating with the Jajaric table, you know, the interior sort of bit, so they could create some kind of scene for their shelf. So I do think that that sort of thing lends itself to the Black Series a little bit more. I think with the playsets, as I mentioned last week, Hasbro tend to like playsets that, you know, where you can get lots of different characters in there, with like the Tantive 4 playset, you've got the Jabba's Palace, the Cantina. It enables you to put lots and lots of figures in there. You know, with the interior of the Falcon, for example, if you just want to create one scene, then you've potentially got, you know, 4 main characters or 5 main characters, and that's kind of it. But I can see why you would like to do that, mate, because I too would like to see the interior of my Millennium Falcon at all times with a little scene going on in there. But at the moment, it's on a guitar stand. Bayabab Archive says, question for next week, if Hasbro decided to cut the BS and just start charging $24 a piece for each standard release on a traditionally sized card, which is clearly what they want to do, would carded collectors be fine with that price point? Would dual collectors, carded and openers, still buy two? Personally, I'm an opener and I'm having a hard time justifying the higher price point with or without the deluxe facade. So, I mean, I don't really want to answer for everybody on this. You know, everybody's got sort of their opinion about how expensive things should be, and, you know, deluxe versus non-deluxe, how much they're prepared to pay. And I never really want to be the one to sort of make it okay for Hasbro to charge more for this stuff. I do feel that we're in a little bit of a rut at the moment in terms of, you know, the standard price figures that we are getting are lacking paint applications on the accessories and sometimes on the figures as well, which is a problem for me. So I do feel that a price increase is almost inevitable at some point. We all know that, you know, prices across the world for everything, shipping, production, labor over in these countries has all increased over the years. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be paying $24 for a standard figure. So that's no, I would not want to be doing that. But I can see a price increase coming, but I don't think it will go up to that much. But yeah, these deluxe ones with an extra riot shield, I personally would probably prefer them to be on a standard card without the riot shield at the normal price. That's just in that Commandos example anyway. All right then guys, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you do have a question for next week's episode, leave it in the comment section of this video and hopefully your question will be featured next week. Be sure to check out my reviews for the Snowtrooper and for Chopper and for all of the other figures from that wave, which will be coming up this week, including the Dr. Evazan with a comparison against the previous version. And I think Aura Singh's in that wave as well. So thank you all for watching. Thanks to my Patreon supporters and channel members. As always, your support is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.